Hungaroring as the cars taking to the track for qualifying ahead of the 8th race of the International GTOpen season. As you join myself, Ben Evans, on a beautiful morning here just outside Budapest. The 24-car entry gave us some fantastic entertainment in yesterday's race, which was eventually claimed by Thomas Biaggi and Giovanni Venturini after late drama when the race-long leading car of Miguel Ramos and Mikel Mack tangled in traffic, and as Ramos was delayed, that allowed Valentin Pierberg and Thomas Biaggi to sweep past, with then Biaggi passing Pierberg even later on to take victory. And it's Thomas Biaggi who qualifies the car this morning. That performance in yesterday's race enough to give Biaggi and Venturini the lead of the championship as well for the Imperiale Racing team. Meanwhile, Yuri Malcherek in the Racing Trevor BMW, also one of the drivers who takes the track early in the session, as does the second of the Imperiale Lamborghinis. That is Vito Postiglione, who might be a good shout for pole position here. There he is, the number 23 car, because the way that the weekend format works is that the driver who qualifies on Saturday starts Saturday's race, the driver who qualifies on Sunday starts Sunday's race. And so that means that drivers that finished yesterday taking to the track this morning, and the balance of drivers throughout the field means that some of the pro drivers will have qualified yesterday. There'll be some other pro drivers who'll be qualifying today. Other cars to watch for: Farnbacher Racing Lexus, a Dominic Farnbacher, a car that's won 2 races so far this season, Estoril in Spa, but had a pretty rough time of it in Paul Ricard, and also a far from easy day yesterday, and also Fran Rueda in the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW, who is well worth keeping tabs on. Johnny Motham in the FF Course Ferrari, very, very experienced driver as well, is going to be worth watching, as he was able to put that car on the front row in Spa, admittedly unable to take the start of the race because the session ended in the wall for him, and too much damage in too little time, but he will certainly be one who will be mixing it at the front of the field, as almost certainly will Com Ledegaard in the Garage 59 McLaren. Ledegaard, who, as ever, raced through the field with some aplomb yesterday afternoon. Yuri Malcherek has a little bit of a moment in the Racing Trevor BMW, running behind Vito Postiglione. And another contender for pole position is surely going to be Thomas Jaeger in the Lechner Racing Mercedes. Jaeger and Mario Plasciuta, second in the Pro-Am class in yesterday's race, following an absolutely scintillating performance from Jaeger on a track which really does seem to be suiting the Mercedes very well. The MS Racing entry in the AM class, yesterday's AM winners, Martin Conrad and Alexander Joaquina, the overall quickest combination in free practice on Friday. And then the SPS Automotive entry, Valentin Pierberg and Lance DeArnold, very, very good form as well. So, sprinting through, Thomas Biaggi, his first quick lap of the session, a 1 minute 45.6 for the vastly experienced Italian, reigning champion, of course, in the International GTOpen, and going about this year's campaign in much the way that he went about last year's, which is always racking up the points, taking the victories when the opportunity presents themselves, but more importantly, always taking good points if events go away from you. Fran Rueda in the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW was victorious in race 2 in Paul Ricard alongside Victor Bouveng. And the BMWs yesterday really showing great staying power throughout the race. There were some concerns maybe that they would be eating up their tyres a little bit more quickly than their rivals, but certainly in terms of consistency of performance through the course of the race, that didn't appear to be the case. And so Rueda and Bouveng, well worth keeping an eye on their progress. Com Ledegaard is the driver who I think is about to move up to the top of the times and set the benchmark. He's just gone quicker than anybody else through the opening couple of sectors. One is still the very early stage of the session, because they have got 30 minutes to play with, and what we will see is that there'll be some cars that go out and do a couple of runs. There'll be others that just do a single run as Rueda heads towards the pits. Ledegaard posts a time for 1 minute 43.9, so that's starting to get into benchmark territory. Here is Miguel Ramos at the wheel of the Spirit to Race Ferrari. And Ramos, it was just trying to put a lap on Johnny Molam late on yesterday, which caught him out. The two cars tangling. Around went Ramos, picked up a fair amount of damage as well to the front end of the car. Fortunately, not such that it pitched him into retirement. So, although very, very disappointed to only finish in third, actually for Miguel Ramos and Michael Mack, they still netted a very handy haul of points and are still right up there at the top of the championship fight alongside the Emil Frey Racing Lexus of Philip Fromenweiler and Albert Costa, a car that is yet to venture into the session. So the order is currently Com Ledegaard, quickest, second is Thomas Jaeger, third Thomas Biaggi, fourth Dominic Farnbacher, and fifth Alexander Traquina. At this point of the session, those times are maybe not all that indicative of where we'll expect the session to go. Jaeger flashing his headlights, pushing hard in the Lechner Racing Mercedes. Second appearance of the season for the Lechner Mercedes. It was absolutely flying in Paul Ricard, but even more so here at the Hungaroring. She's running ahead of Rino Mastronaldi at the moment in the SF Racing Ferrari. Mastronaldi stepping in place of Andrea Caldarelli this weekend as partner Fu Song Yang, as Ledegaard improves his time further still, a 1 minute 43.8. So that is impressive so far from the Frenchman Ledegaard. And for Garage 59 team, they had the celebration of the podium in the Pro-Am class yesterday for Duncan Tappy and Mike Benham. But today, it could be the opportunity for Alex West and Com Ledegaard to challenge for the podium. So yesterday's pole position time, to give you a point of reference for Michael Mack, was a 1 minute 42.9. And the time from Com Ledegaard of 1:43.8 would have put him about 6th on the grid. And so it's nonetheless an impressive time from Ledegaard, but he's going even quicker still on this lap as we follow Alexander Traquina at the wheel of the MS Racing Mercedes. As the Austrian accelerates into the final turn, Ledegaard is the driver who is on an absolutely fantastic lap in the Garage 59 McLaren, as Traquina comes around and posts an improved time to remain in 5th position with a 1 minute 45.3. Just watching from my window for Ledegaard to home into view, if indeed he does. And Ledegaard comes past now. He's actually completely backed out of the lap in the late stages of it. Now, Fran Rueda is the driver worth keeping an eye on. Rueda just gone quicker than anybody through Sector 1 in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. As Traquina and Ramos continue to fly in tandem. And Ramos losing one of his lap times, not his best one, for track limits, because again, there's been pretty much a zero tolerance policy to track limit violations during qualifying this weekend. Anybody who's putting all 4 wheels over the white line is running the risk of having their time expunged. So this is yesterday's runner-up and Pro-Am class winner, Valentin Pierberg. The SPS Automotive Mercedes has been getting stronger with each and every outing so far this season. And Pierberg, just a slight error late on at turn 1, left the door open for Thomas Biaggi to sneak past, and otherwise it was getting to the point where we were struggling to see where Biaggi was going to be able to get through. As Fran Rueda goes quickest, so Rueda a 1 minute 43.0 from the Spaniard in the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. Now that is the sort of time that the others will... there is Raider flashing his headlights, and that is a very, very competitive time. It's not quite at Michael Mack's pole position mark yesterday, but it would have put him on the front row of the grid. And so it's 0.8 better than the best that Com Ledegaard has achieved. And so now the bar has been set. What can the others do? As Raider, he's unlikely to improve massively on this lap, it must be said. As he just bounces over the curb. Still early stage of the session, 19 minutes to run. So whether or not this is going to be it for Fran Rueda, or whether or not he's got another run on within him, we will find out due course. Eduardo Liberati, meanwhile, in the Raton Racing Lamborghini, is steadily moving up through the order. He's just climbed to 4th with a 1 minute 44.7. Make that third, 1 minute 44.3 from Liberati. And Fran Rueda, he's just posted the best middle sector of the session thus far. He's going to close up. So a car in traffic here is Eduardo Liberati, whom we were mentioning moments ago. And the immaculately liveried car looks absolutely magnificent. Liberati and Kang Ling, they've been steadily climbing up through the order in each successive event of the GTOpen this year. But unfortunately, the good news is short-lived for Eduardo Liberati, because he's lost that lap time for an abuse of track limits. So Liberati gets shuffled back down to 4th, and his time of 1 minute 44.7 is now recognised as his best of the session. Nonetheless, the Italian carving his way around this Hungaroring circuit. He's potentially on course for another improved time in the Lamborghini Huracan. Meanwhile, Davide Rizzo goes third, 1 minute 44.4 in the Kaspersky Ferrari. As Liberati is, based on the progress of this lap so far, I would say looking at about a 1 minute 44.2 at the end of it, maybe a little bit better than that. In fact, it's none of it, because he peels into the pit lane, but it's all tantalising stuff, this, because we're seeing lots of drivers setting best sectors on laps that they're then abandoning, so the potential for improvement is very live. Com Ledegaard is in the pits, and we will pick up Hiroshi Hamaguchi in the Triple F Racing Lamborghini. Hamaguchi and Vitantonio Liuzzi having one of their better performances of the season in race 1 yesterday, right in the thick of the action, as headlights ablaze. Charging down the start finish straight is the car that came into the weekend as the leader in the Pro-Am Championship, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini and Marco Ciocci. Yesterday, the gearbox brought the car to a grinding halt about 100 metres into its qualifying session. Brought out the red flag. It meant that Ciocci started in the back of the grid, but was able to race his way through up to 8th position by the time that we had the mid-race pit stops. And Perezzini and Ciocci, very strong pairing. Second half of yesterday's race didn't go according to plan. Perezzini tangled with Com Ledegaard and then got involved in other people's adventures. Now this is a good lap at the moment for Vito Postiglione in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini. He and Andrea Fontana scored their sole podium finish of the season to date in race 2 in Paul Ricard, and Postiglione right on it. He's done a personal best through Sector 1, a 36.7. That compares favourably to a 36.6 of the quickest cars in the session. Oh, but he's just run a little bit wide coming out of turn 13. He's set the fastest middle sector of anybody of the session, but he now comes up behind the Ferrari of Perezzini. Perezzini jumps out of the way, allows Postiglione to continue with his lap. The Italian just runs a little bit wide through the hairpin at turn 15, then into turn 16, pushing really, really hard in the Lamborghini Huracan. And this is going to be a good lap, provided he's allowed to keep it for Vito Postiglione as he flashes across the line. Goes second to 1 minute 43.6 for Vito Postiglione in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini Huracan. And Imperiale Racing putting together a very, very strong package for this season. Yuri Mauschrek, meanwhile, in the Racing Trevor, BMW, is currently in 20th, but he is on another quick lap, looking to make it his best lap of the session. Hiroshi Hamaguchi has just gone fourth, so the order is Fran Rueda from Vito Postiglione, then it's Com Ledegaard, Hiroshi Hamaguchi, Davide Rizzo, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, Thomas Jaeger in 7th, Philip Fromavila is 8th, Eduardo Liberati is 9th, and Miguel Ramos completes the top 10. Here is Philip Fromavila then, in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus. Fromavila has just done personal best of the session at 1 minute 44.6, left him 1.6 seconds adrift of pole position. But a chance now with a little bit of clear air around him for the Lexus driver to see what he can do about an elevated grid position. He and Albert Costa in pursuit of a 3rd victory of the season, as he just runs out to the periphery of the circuit, pushing hard. Yuri Mauschrek, by the way, on that lap we were following partly, he improved up to 16th. Mike Benham jumps up to 12th with his first flying lap of the session. Garage 59 McLaren. And this lap for Philip Fromavila, it's going to be a good one. Whether or not it's going to be his best one, I think we'll find out momentarily. Could be. It's not going to be anywhere near pole position for him, though. But he might be able to climb up from 8th place. Heads into the final sequence. We have got more deleted lap times, and it is actually for Philip Fromavila, which was his prior best lap, so he needs to convert this one as he accelerates through across the line. Philip Fromavila goes 6th at 1 minute 44.3, so the benchmark time remains Fran Rueda at 1 minute 43.0. Nobody else has got within 0.6 of a second of him. Vito Postiglione in 2nd. Nope. We were wrong, because Alan Hellmeister in the DriveX Mercedes, who was so spectacular in Paul Ricard, goes 2nd at 1 minute 43.4. So he is 0.4 back of that pole position mark. Now, Vito Postiglione, what can he offer us? The first sector was 36.8. The driver, though, who's really, really flying is Thomas Jaeger, who's just set the fastest middle sector of anybody of the session. So as we ride with Postiglione, we'll have a little bit of a look at Luis Silva in action in the Sport & New Mercedes, one of the preeminent competitors in the AM class. Luis Silva and Antonio Coimbra, 3rd in the AM class yesterday, on what was a very successful afternoon for Sport & U, because they got both their cars onto the podium, as Jaeger goes through a 1 minute 42.9 for Thomas Jaeger, who moves to the top of the times as a result in the Lechner Racing Mercedes. And that was a fantastic lap from Jaeger, quicker than anybody else in sectors 2 and 3. So Thomas Jaeger to the top of the times. Luis Silva coming to the end of an out lap, so he's heading into a flying lap. His Sport & New Mercedes teammate, Jose Balbiani, also about to embark on one. But the session is far from over. Jaeger has set the benchmark. Fran Rueda is with him. We think, though, there is still more to come from Com Ledegaard, possibly from Vito Postiglione, possibly from Philip Fromavila. Thomas Biaggi and Johnny Molam, I'd suggest as well. For now, though, for Luis Silva, see where this lap is going to put him. Suspect somewhere about 18th position, based on the way that he's been going so far. Thomas Jaeger, here he is, meanwhile, is on course for another improvement. He's just at the purple sector in Sector 2, and everything about the lap so far suggests an improvement. Here he comes then up and over the line for Jaeger. 1 minute 42.7, quickest lap in qualifying of the weekend in the International GTOpen. And Thomas Jaeger, 3/10 clear of the rest of the field. He's the only driver in the 1 minute 42-second bracket. And he really lays the gauntlet down to the rest of them. Jaeger, letting the racing team just got that car working absolutely beautifully. It was very, very quick out of the box in Paul Ricard. It's been quicker still here in the Hungaroring, as Miguel Ramos goes third, a 1 minute 43.3. So the order is Thomas Jaeger from Fran Rueda, then Miguel Ramos and Alan Hellmeister, Vito Postiglione in fifth. Thomas Biaggi improves to sixth to make it an all Imperiale Racing row 3. Com Ledegar is seventh, from Davide Rizzo in eighth. As Johnny Molam just jumps up into fifth. Jaeger is still pushing. Has he backed out of the lap? He set a fastest first sector for the session through sector 1. It doesn't look as if he's using anywhere like as much road on this lap, and he's back right out of it. But Miguel Ramos, another driver who is pushing for an improvement. Johnny Molam in fifth might be able to squeeze another one out. Com Ledegar has just exited the pit, so he will be pushing on. Sean Balfe is currently what had been looking like his best lap of the session, but he peels out of it as Jaeger ducks into the pit lane. Session complete. Here is Dominic Farnbacher. Farnbacher Racing Lexus currently down in just 21st place. What can he do? He's partnered by Norbert Seidler this weekend. Mario Farnbacher committed elsewhere. Farnbacher and Postiglione just backing right out of it, trying to get a little bit of clear track for a lap as Thomas Biaggi sighs through. And Biaggi looking for a good time here. Across the line he comes and goes sixth with a 1 minute 43.6. So both Thomas Jaeger and Fran Rueda are in the pits. They look out the front row of the grid. Miguel Ramos continues to circulate, but Ramos, to give you an indication, is 3/10 of a second back from Jaeger just through sector 1, even though this is Ramos's best lap of the session. Johnny Molam continuing to improve in fifth, a 1 minute 43.5. Dominic Farnbacher, what can he do in the Lexus? Through the first sector, 37.4, so he's still a way out, I have to say. 9/10 adrift of the pace that we've seen from Thomas Jaeger. Philip Frommenweiler in the Emil Frey Racing Lexus in the pits, but currently 12th on the timing screen. Biaggi and Postiglione, both on potentially good laps. Com Ledegar has just gone out to start a flying lap as well, as we continue to ride alongside Dominic Farnbacher. And the Lexus looks so well hooked up. But again, he's giving away a little bit of ground through the middle sector, and so this is going to be an improved time for him as Mike Benham rejoins the track after a little bit of an adventure. How much an improvement for Dominic Farnbacher, we will find out momentarily. He's currently in 23rd position, the best time for 1 minute 46.0. This is going to be probably a 1:45 something. Better than that, just a 1 minute 44.6. So it climbs Dominic Farnbacher up to 16th position. 5 minutes left on the clock. Thomas Jaeger still top of the times from Fran Rueda, who's going back out for another crack of the whip. Vito Postiglione third, Miguel Ramos fourth, Alan Hellmeister fifth, Thomas Biaggi sixth, Johnny Molam seventh, Eduardo Liberati eighth, Com Ledegar ninth, Davide Rizzo is 10th, Valentin Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Mercedes is currently in the same position as his number, 20th. And Pierberg, yesterday's runner-up, he's about to post his best lap of the session. And it's a good one for Pierberg, 1 minute 44.5, so he climbs to 15th. But to give you an indication, the top 17 cars are all covered by under 2 seconds. It's remarkably close as Com Ledegaard improves to third, a 1 minute 44.1. So Ledegaard just under half a second shy of Jaeger's mark. Thomas Jaeger has headed back out onto the track as well to defend his pole position. So the last few minutes of this session now really coming alive. There you see the classification. 0.7 of a second covering the top 6. So really any improvements here are potentially going to lead to quite a big jump up the grid. Sean Balfe currently in 19th place in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren. Into the pit lane, meanwhile, has come Mike Benham, who was rejoining the track after an issue. And Benham, he's currently only in 20th position. Garage 59 mechanics at work. But I fear that that may leave Benham with a little bit of a mountain to climb in terms of a quick lap time. Postiglione goes second. Vito Postiglione, a 1 minute 42.9. Within 0.3 of Thomas Jaeger's mark. So, as we had perhaps anticipated, Postiglione a man on the charge, as is Miguel Ramos, and also Fran Rueda. We're with Miguel Ramos, who's just done a personal best first sector. Ramos currently 0.6 away from pole position. If he can find 0.2 of a second, that's going to be enough to get him up onto the second row of the grid. As the Ferrari gets on the brakes into turn 14, Ramos rides the curbs. Not such a good middle sector for Miguel Ramos, as he continues to climb uphill. Fran Rueda having a very, very good lap. As Ramos accelerates out of the final turn, is this going to be an improvement for Miguel Ramos? Yes, it is, just a 1 minute 43.2. So he jumps ahead of Vito Postiglione, who has been shuffled from 3rd to 5th. And that's mainly because his best lap time, that put him 2nd, has been disqualified for track limits. As Fran Rueda goes top, Rueda a 1 minute 42.3. Where did that come from? From Fran Rueda, 0.4 up on Thomas Jaeger, and pretty much detonates the field. So the Teo Marti Motorsport BMW, Fran Rueda, in absolutely scintillating form as he picks his way downhill. And this is really good stuff from the Spaniard. Is this lap going to be the improvement as well? We'll find out in a moment's time as he climbs up towards the end of the first sector. No, it's not, but it's still a pretty good sector, a 36.5. So Thomas Jaeger is out and circulating. He is struggling to get below the 1 minute 42.7 second bracket. Then we've got Com Ledegaard, who's also there. He's in 3rd. He's 0.8 adrift of pole position. Now here is Ledegaard, the Garage 59 McLaren, the car that he shares with Alex West. And Ledegaard just navigating his way downhill. Not sure this is a flying lap. It's difficult to see with the McLaren. It's so well poised. Another disqualified time for Vito Postiglione. As here is Thomas Jaeger. Jaeger definitely not on a flying lap this time around, but if he can get to the pits in the next 70 seconds, then he will have a chance for one more flyer. The same goes for Com Ledegaard. He gets passed by the DriveX Mercedes Wallenhelmeister, who is on a quick lap, and the Brazilian has just done a personal best sector 1. Rides the curbs, swings through the left-hander. Now this is the critical corner for track limits, turn 13, and well, judgment will be passed. Also wasn't quite an improvement through the middle sector either for the Mercedes. So 25 seconds left on the clock. Fran Rueda, top of the time. 2nd is Thomas Jaeger. 3rd, Com Ledegaard. 4th, Miguel Ramos. 5th, Vito Postiglione. 6th, Alan Helmeister. 7th, Thomas Biaggi. 8th, Davide Rizzo, the top of the AM class runners, as Rueda clambers out of the BMW. Well, Thomas Jaeger elects not to go for a final lap of the session. So Jaeger peels in. He won't improve. Teo Martin Motorsport team celebrate. So I think it's all eyes on Ledergaard because he's gone for one final flying lap in the McLaren, and Ledergaard has got a pretty clear track. Everybody rushes rightly to congratulate Rueda because that was an absolutely phenomenal time that he pulled out right at the end of the session. Watching Teo Martin, it's right to your picture, not unsurprisingly, all smiles. Ledergaard, not an improvement through Sector 1, a 36.6 from the Frenchman. He's currently third. Vito Postiglione is going to come probably abandon a lap. He's not going to improve. And Hellmeister unlikely to either. So just as the flag comes out, Rueda gets to work in the garage. There's not many more cars circulating to take the flag, and certainly, with the exception of Jose Balbiani in 19th, none of them looking likely to make an improvement. Com Ledergaard, well, his best sectors came on a lap that he didn't quite complete, so there might be half an improvement here for Ledergaard, but no, he heads to the pit lane, so that essentially settles our order. Just, I think, one car that we'd expect to see taking the checkered flag, Jose Balbiani in the sporty new Mercedes, which he does now as Balbiani through and doesn't improve. Com Ledergaard hard at work at the wheel of the McLaren, riding the curbs like you wouldn't believe. So, fascinating qualifying session for the International GTOpen here at the Hungaroring. Fran Rueda takes pole position. He'll share the front row of the grid with the Lechner Racing Mercedes of Thomas Jaeger. Then row 2, Com Ledergaard in the Garage 59 McLaren and Miguel Ramos in the Spirited Race Ferrari. Vito Postiglione in 5th in the Imperiale Racing Lamborghini alongside Alan Hellmeister in the DriveX Mercedes. Thomas Biaggi, yesterday's winner, will start in 7th, and Davide Rizzo, top AM driver, in 8th. More work to do for Dominic Farnbacher from 12th on the grid, and likewise for Sean Balfe down in 20th. Mike Benham, a troubled session. He'll start in 21st ahead of Alexander Raquina, with Paul Scheusner completing the grid. So the race will get underway just after 2 o'clock local time this afternoon. Do make sure that you join us, www.gtopen.net, for all the action. Until then, from Ben Evans in the Hungaroring, it's goodbye.